No, you start the usual and then I'll just chime in because you forget me as well.
Or I can just start it with a question. Yes.
Go on, whatever you want.
Hit us with a question.
All right. How are you guys? Tell me, what is the last book you read?
That's 2 questions, Rachel. You say you're going to hit us with one question.
You said you were only going to ask us one.
Okay, well, forget the how are you, because let's face it, I don't actually care how you guys are. So what's the last book you read?
Topically, I'm in the middle of reading a book called 80-20 and Running, which I have right here in front of me. No use for a podcast, but I can prove to you guys because it's on screen here.
Okay.
Before that, I was reading a book on Joe Montana, which is not so topical for this podcast.
I'm reading now. This is going to be an insight into what's going on in my life. Healing is the New High, is what it's called. I'm currently reading it. It's by Vex King. It's all about like inner healing techniques and stuff. It's just coming at stuff from a different angle. It's actually quite nice. It's all about creating positive relationships and your inner vibration, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's actually really good. It teaches you about meditating and dealing with your stuff internally and just having a more positive outlook.
Rachel, are you expecting us to say the Beano or something, or what's going on?
No, just curious. One of my friends keeps giving out to me. She keeps giving me all these books, and to be honest, the only thing I've read recently is like Active Maths 4 for Leaving Cert. If I'm not prescribing questions out of it, I'm not reading. I don't know. My friend gave me an interesting book, The Hidden Brain, all about our subconscious brain, things like that. I need to read it. I keep promising her I'll read it. If she's listening to this, she knows I absolutely have not started it yet. But maybe I will start it this week.
Yeah, it sounds like a good one. Like even with this, it's all about even just how you're feeling, how you're thinking about yourself, and how it can impact your training and your life. And the subconscious brain is important, and I suppose that's why sports psychologists get paid so much. But it's speaking of school, Rachel, I played a basketball tournament today. And I forgot how much I loved being so average at sport, but treating it like I was playing in the Olympic final and trying to bully everyone on the court. It was brilliant. I missed PE in school where you rock up and it was like, this week is hockey. You'd already eyeing up the shins of the other person. It was so good. I was so average, below average, but it was just so much fun to be running around, not knowing what I was doing.
Well, that's like me most weeks. So one of my favorite PE classes this year is 6th year PE. And I've just been introducing them to a whole load of sports. Like we've done everything from volleyball, where I nearly knocked myself out, to cricket, rounders, just normal soccer, like you name it, we have tried it. And like I'm here going like, okay, let's do this for a bit of fun. And the competitiveness in the class, like I actually can't keep up. And then they're coming to me about all these different rules. I'm like, oh, Rachel, they did that. And I'm like, guys, are we here like for a bit of fun, or are we here like to like literally take the other team out of it? And it's always take the other team out of it.
I absolutely empathize with them. I go to a new level. I just get tunnel vision and that's it. It's game on. No matter what the sport. I could be racing snails across the road and I'm still going to win. But anyway,
I do have a feeling though you're like me with basketball. Like no matter how many times you shoot, you get worse instead of better. I feel like you'd be like that.
Eric.
So bad.
Yeah. The height is no advantage in that case.
We had 2 quarters and we didn't put the ball in the basket once. Anyway, enough about me. Rach, what have we got on the series this week?
Well, this week we are heading stateside to a place called St. Petersburg in Florida. And we have an incredible woman coming on to talk to us. And she won't mind me saying this, but she is a bookworm. Hence, I was asking you the last book you read, see if we have any good suggestions.
We passed the test,
Mandy,
Sean.
Yeah, much better than my suggestion anyway. But Mandy is coming on. If you're looking for inspirational women, you just literally need to open your eyes and look around. And Mandy is absolutely, she ticks the box for inspirational. She's a mom. She works full time. She is an athlete. She's just completed her first Ironman 70.3. So like, I don't know how she's either just has more hours in the day than the rest of us, or she's just like nailed the time management aspect of it. But whatever way, she is definitely inspirational. And yeah, it's just going to be a fun one to listen to. So with that, let's just jump straight into it and let's meet Mandy.
Looking forward to it. Sean, hit the intro music.
Let's go.
Mandy, you are very welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. Would you please introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I don't know that I'm necessarily worthy, but I'm really happy to be on with you today. My name is Mandy. I live in Florida, in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I am a triathlete and a runner and a mom. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, you think you're not, I suppose, worthy to be on, but I completely disagree. Because you didn't start off, like you weren't a keen runner or triathlete throughout school or high school. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
You kind of came to it a bit later on.
Yeah, definitely. I played soccer and basketball as a kid. So I just ran when my coaches made me. So in college, in college, my sister gave me the book Born to Run. And after I read that book, I was like, oh my gosh, humans are made to run. Why don't I run all the time? And so I did my first 5K. And pretty much after that, I was hooked on running. And then 3 years ago, I moved to St. Petersburg from Tampa. And I started working at a running store here, local running store. And a lot of my friends and folks who became my training partners were into triathlon. And I was like, maybe I'll give this a go. And I did my first sprint triathlon. And then again, I was just hooked. I was like, oh, this is freaking amazing.
Yeah. But I think you can start at any time. Like, I think people are always like, oh no, like I'm not a runner. I'm not a triathlete. Like I don't do that. And people are nearly too afraid to try it. But I think you'd be like, no, like you can go at any stage and just start.
Yeah, I think sport can be kind of intimidating for people, especially if you're getting a later start. Some people think you have to be starting from the time you're 5 years old, like some Olympians. But even if you look at some of the Olympian stories, some of them come to it late. So you can start at any time, really. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. It's just having that confidence to lace up those shoes and just take the first step out the door. And who knows what you can accomplish.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm going to go back. That's very interesting what you said about the book, because would you describe yourself as a bit of a bookworm maybe?
Yeah, I've always been a big reader. One of my professions, I'm a bookseller. So I've been working in independent bookstores for about 12 years now. And my background in school, I was an English major. So I've been kind of a bookish person my whole life. And so reading the book really had a big impact on me.
That is amazing. But it's amazing how you came to it from such it wasn't just a case of, oh yeah, I just rocked up to athletics training one day. It wasn't, it was from a book, which I think it's probably not uncommon, but it's a story you don't hear about, that is where you fell in love with the sport and you're like, I have to try this.
Yeah. That's true. It's funny.
I know. And then you mentioned you were a mom. So I suppose for listeners everywhere, a lot of people struggle with finding time to do things. So you're obviously a mom, you work full time, and then you're still training. So what's it like being a mom and trying to fit in some training? What's it like being a mom in general?
Well, exhausting. As a mom, I think you kind of feel like your life is an endurance sport anyway. So I've got a 5-year-old who's very active and kind of insane. So working around her schedule can be a little tricky, especially I'm working 40 to 50 hours a week and trying to train the 12 hours on top of that. So it's kind of a lot, but, I have a really good partner in Ryan. So the two of us are able to kind of coordinate our weeks well enough that somebody can be home while the other person's training. So most of my training is done very early in the morning when it's still dark out.
And that is amazing. We'll get back to Ryan in a second and how you guys met. But what does your daughter make of all this? Like, she's seeing her mom like do all of these incredible things. Like, as you said, you're working full time, and then she sees you training, because if she's very active, she must be fascinated by all of this.
Yeah, she's very funny. She likes to be involved in everything. She knows if she wakes up and it's dark still, she knows to find me in the bike room. So she just kind of knows these things, or she hears the door. She's like, "Mom, are you going for a run?" It's very much ingrained in our life. We talk about training all the time. She's gone on a couple runs with me, which has been really awesome for me. It's just been so fun to watch her kind of blossom into that. She loves running. And she watched the Olympic triathlons with us, the men's and women's races. And now she wants to go to the Olympics for a triathlon. That's one of the things that she wants to do when she grows up. So I think it's a really cool way that she's growing up, because when I grew up, I didn't really have a concept of sport in that way. Like, my parents weren't active like that. So it's kind of fun to share that with her, and just to see her interest in it. She likes coming out to the races when she can. So yeah, it's been fun.
That is fantastic. But it is so important for, especially young girls, to see, what they can achieve if they put their minds to it. So we will definitely be checking back in with her in a few years' time and see. But it doesn't sound like you would ever force her to do it. Like you mentioned, she comes on runs with you, but I think is she like the dictator? Like, does she rule the house? Like, she tells you if she's running?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely on her terms. And she's got a Sunny Runner shirt from the running store. So she'll put that on when she's ready to go run. But for the most part, I don't push anything. Right now she's doing dance. She's into dance club, ballet, which is something I have no idea about. I never would have guessed she'd be a dancer, because I was never interested in that at all. So, I took her to the dance store and I was completely at a loss. I was like, I don't know what to look for in here. I only know running and triathlon, so I'm going to have to leave it to the experts. So yeah, I'm very much, whatever her path is, I would like her to be involved in something active, because I just think it's good for you. But yeah, if she decides to be a ballerina, more power to her.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. Again, if she saw that somewhere, like, it's about the exposure that little girls these days have. She could have seen that in a show or something, but if she sees it, she's like, I can do that. And I just think there's so much power in, like, being exposed to different things. And, as you said, whatever path she chooses to go down, if she's active, that is fantastic.
Yeah. And I try to show her, there's a couple, like this past Olympics had a lot of young women athletes. And so I would show her, especially in skateboarding, I've been showing her a couple of the young women skateboarders. And there's this one little girl out of Brazil who's been skating forever, and she'll dress, I don't think she does it so much anymore, but when she was younger, she dressed up in like Wonder Woman costumes. And so I try to I try not to be too heavy handed, but I try to be as heavy handed as possible with like, this is what girls can do. I just want to make it a normal thing for her. Because I don't think when I was growing up even, there was like this concept that women could do all of these amazing things that they can do. Like, it wasn't it wasn't in my psyche that like, that's what you could do. Because all the role models were boys. So I try as much as I can to be like, look at this girl. She's an amazing skateboarder. She won a medal at the Olympics. I'm trying to just give her as much of that as possible.
Yeah, that is amazing. But then obviously you're doing so much for your daughter, like, being a mom is a full-time job in itself. How do you fit everything in? Because obviously I follow you on Instagram, and anyone who, follows you would see that there are mornings where you maybe have a run scheduled, but your daughter wakes up early. So suddenly we're changing plans. How do you how do you roll with that? Like, do you just have to just go with the flow? Do you like, for some people that would be really hard if they had a run schedule, they're like, I'm going for my run, but you just seem so flexible.
I'm really glad that I come off that way. In the moment, it's very frustrating. It can be difficult because I'm also the person, like if I have on my training plan what I need to do, I'm very committed to getting that thing done. And I'm also very much, I like to know my plans ahead of time. But when you have a kid, like you said, you have to be flexible and adaptable, which is something I've been really like learning, making myself learn, or she's been making me learn. And this past week is a perfect example. Like we had a really weird week with her. She had a couple weird night sleeps and then she had a fever. So my training was just kind of all over the place. Like I had a run scheduled and a swim scheduled, and I had to refocus and do something and then swap my workouts. So a lot of that is just me having to like calm my temper tantrum and figure out a time that I can do it. And then like, you know, Ryan's helpful too, because he's often the voice of reason where he can be like, okay, you know, you can fit this run in on Saturday and we can swap these things around. And he'll sometimes change my training peaks so I'm not looking at a big red circle, because that just fills me with anxiety.
Yeah, I know it can be so tough. But a few weeks ago on this podcast, having that chat with Greta, and we did actually speak about that and, you know, constantly doing prehab, because that's what you tend to do, like home workouts when you can't go for a run, you do a lot of that. So I suppose having that voice of reason behind you in Ryan saying, you know, it's okay, you're still doing something, we can rearrange. That must be very nice and very helpful.
It is. Yeah, it is. And it definitely makes me do the prehab, which obviously I would most rather go for a hard run. But sometimes I know I need to like do my strength and make sure I'm not getting injured and keep myself healthy. So sometimes it works out all right.
Exactly, because I mean, there's a lot at stake, you know, if you are injured, like even just for being a really active mom, just with your daughter, just being able to do things with her, like the last thing you want is an injury holding you back.
Yeah, it's actually leading up to the 70.3 that I just did. I had a bit of a running injury and I couldn't really run much for pretty much the whole month leading up to the race. And that was pretty stressful because I was just panicked that the injury would keep me from being able to perform on race day. And even PJ, she was like asking me about my ankle. And when she talked to me about my race, she's like, I know why you're nervous, because of your ankle.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, staying injury free is the key.
I know. But let's go on then and talk about how you met Ryan, because obviously we've talked about how he is a support, like that voice of reason, because how you met Ryan coincides with how you, like, I suppose you working in a running store. So how does someone who is so interested in books and like had a whole career around books find themselves in a running store? What led you to it?
So when Pearl was about 1, she and I moved from Tampa to St. Petersburg, and I was working with there's a bookstore here that I work for now, but at the time it wasn't fully open yet. So I was helping with the process of opening the store because I had left the bookstore that I worked at in Tampa. So while we were getting up and running, I needed some form of income. And I had approached Cody and Jana at the running store, and I asked if they'd be interested in me having a book club there, because I was like, I'd been to the running store. I loved how involved they were with community. And I thought it would be a cool fit because I love running and books. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just have a book club there and kind of get all the things connected. And they said, yeah, we'd be interested in talking to you about a book club. And also, would you be interested in working here? And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And so the rest is kind of history. Yeah, I came on at the running store and I loved it there. I really respect Cody and Jana a ton. They've really built a special place. And I found a really good fit because I was able to connect with runners here, which I hadn't been able to do yet because I was kind of in a new town. So, and one of those people was Ryan. He worked at the store. And a lot of the guys that worked there just became my training buddies. Like we all would run together. We do long runs together on the weekends, and just became a really tight group of friends and training partners. And then about a year later, Ryan and I started dating. So that's we kind of met through working together and then training together at the running store.
And again, it was your love of books which led you to the store. I just love this whole, non-conventional like introduction to running, to working in running stores, things like that. And we better give a shout out to the running store. Obviously, it is St. Pete Running Company in St. Petersburg in Florida. And tell us a bit about that sense of community that, the store has brought to the area, especially from a fitness point of view, because, Florida gets such beautiful weather all year. Well, I mean, coming from Ireland, I'm going to say it's beautiful weather all year round. You living there might be like, the heat, I can't stand the heat. I just want to
very hot.
But, you do have the weather that means you can be outdoors most of the year. You can be active. So what has the running store done for like the community there and the sense of being active and getting fit and healthy?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's almost November and it's still 80 degrees outside. I'm starting to go crazy.
Okay, let me just do a quick conversion here for anyone in Europe or elsewhere that doesn't use Fahrenheit. So 80 degrees Fahrenheit is just shy of 27 degrees Celsius. Okay.
Yeah, it's very hot.
For comparison, in Dublin right now, actually Dublin's not too cold right now, but it's 16 degrees at the moment.
Woo! I think I take that at the moment, actually.
So sorry, completely interrupted there to do our quick conversions. And full disclosure, I used Google there. I did not do that conversion in my head.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't understand Celsius. I'm totally American on that. So the running store is an amazing place. They what I really loved about them when I at first blush, like just going in as a customer, was just how friendly they are. Like sometimes you feel a little intimidated going into an athletic store. You think that you have to be a certain kind of somebody to go in there, and they really disarm people with just like their friendliness and their openness. And I think that's a big part of how they've gotten so many people active in the area, because they're very welcoming. They don't put on any airs. They're just like, wherever you're at, come and run with us, just be part of the community, or come and swim with us. They really make it so that anybody feels comfortable. And I think that's a big thing. Sometimes people feel intimidated, like I said. And even, when I'm having conversations with customers at the store, they're like, oh, I can't run with you guys. Y'all are probably too fast. And I think just making it open and accessible and fun for people is a big key. So they've done a lot in the community, especially considering they haven't even been open, I think they've been open 7 years now. So, for that short amount of time, they've really made a huge impact, and people are just completely devoted because they've changed a lot of lives just by making the sport accessible.
Which is fantastic. And again, we mentioned already about for like, especially young girls seeing young athletes, but for people who don't perceive themselves as runners, seeing a group of other people they maybe wouldn't look at and consider runners out running.
Yeah.
It can do wonders for the community, being like, as you said, you use the word accessible. Like it's something that if you have a pair of runners, you can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you were obviously able to make some great connections, as you said, lots of great training buddies, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yeah, they just became a family, really. I consider them really, really close friends and family now, that I've been working there 3 years now, a little over 3 years. So yeah, we're just all super close, and it's just a fun family.
Brilliant. And what does that mean for your training? Like, because Greta did speak about this there a few weeks ago about, the people she surrounds herself with. How do you, or what kind of impact do you see that having on your own training or even just your own love of the sport?
Yeah, it's got a massive impact. I mean, like I said, most of my training has to be done at like 5:30 in the morning. So I don't often get to train with people much anymore, but still having those people to bounce ideas off of, or just for them to ask how my training is going, like to go into work and to have, Cody say, oh, how was your long run this morning or something, just kind of have that accountability and interest, because a lot of people on the other side of my life think I'm completely insane for how much I run and how much I train. They don't get it. So it's nice to have people who are really invested in understanding of like why I go to bed at 9 o'clock so that I can wake up at 5 a.m. to train. Like they don't think it's crazy.
I know. It's like, I suppose talking about setting a good example for your daughter, though, that must make it great for getting her to bed if she sees you going to bed so early.
Yeah, absolutely. We're like,
you've just made it normal.
Yeah, that's very true.
But you really just highlighted how having this support network around you or this like community of other runners and athletes doesn't necessarily have to be purely training partners. Like it can be that emotional support as well, which I think, running, swimming, cycling, they can be such individual sports that having that community makes it feel less lonely.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I've been doing a lot of my cycling training on Zwift, which is very solitary, of course. I mean, you can kind of, you're just in a room.
I've spoke a lot about Zwift. I think everyone who I talk to knows my obsession with Zwift. But yeah, you're right. Instead of going out on the road where you could even wave at another passerby, you're in a room in your house staring at a screen.
Staring at a screen. Yeah. But then even still, you can, other people who do it, you can see like, oh my gosh, so-and-so was pushing this many watts from, just judging from their Instagram story. And like, even that's a connection. Like it's kind of silly, but in some way you're just like that connects you to the greater sport as a whole. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if you've messed around with like the companion app for Zwift, but if you have the companion app open while you're cycling, you can actually like put your elbow out to signal for someone to overtake you. You can shout ride on at someone, give them a thumbs up. It does try and make it a bit more interactive to, I suppose, really counteract that whole I'm in a room on my own at home and staring at a screen. And I'm sure people who don't get it and who aren't interested in sport must think like we're crazy for doing things like that.
Yeah.
It's no different than a treadmill.
Yeah, it isn't. And I think Zwift has done a really great job making it seem very fun and not making it seem too solitary, especially because, with your racing leagues and stuff, like it can be very interactive. So yeah, Zwift is amazing. It's a wonderful invention.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I am obsessed with it. You've heard that many times from me trying to recruit you for teams and everything. Yeah. It's certainly no secret that I am a big advocate for it. So I wanted to go on then because you mentioned your Ironman 70.3, but that was something you were building up to for a long time. And people probably listening going, oh my God, like this incredible lady is working full time. She is, I mean, you mightn't think it, but you definitely sound like an amazing mom. And you have smashed a 70.3 last month. So without even hearing any details, just congratulations. Like that just is an incredible achievement.
Oh, thank you.
Talk us through like the lead up. You mentioned like the injury fear leading up to it. But I suppose tell us about why you chose that one and talk us through like leading up to race day and what was race day like? Because I've never done one. It is on my bucket list, and I'm just so fascinated by the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I got into triathlon. When you're into triathlon, it becomes a lifestyle. Like the training it's just all consuming. And doing sprint distance races was super fun. But I always thought that maybe I'd be a little bit better at the longer courses, because that's just kind of how my body works. I warm up and then I speed up. So I think it was about 6 or 7 months ago, we got notice from Cody that a couple of people were going to be doing Augusta 70.3. And this was, still in the time when Ironman events were being canceled left and right. And we were like, well, let's sign up and give it a go and hope it happens. And, from when we first signed up, I was like, oh, I have ages to train. This is going to be great. And it was a long build up, but I'm glad that I had the time, especially for the bike, because the bike has always been my downfall. It's not my favorite. And you have to get long rides in to prepare for 70.3. So,
and for long rides, just tell people because we might have a lot of runners listening. So for anyone who doesn't do triathlon, what is a long ride? Like, how long are we talking?
For the 70.3, we would do, I think our longest ride was probably 4.5 hours. Just to get time in the saddle, just to have that comfort of knowing you're going to be on the bike for a long time, and just being comfortable with being with your position and taking in nutrition and all that. So, Florida doesn't have very many hills, so we had to find places that would have hills. So we'd drive out and like about an hour away or so that we could ride to get a little bit of elevation. And it was a nice long build. Got my run mileage up and my swim fitness. It was really fun. I enjoyed it very much. But yeah, then towards the very end, I had this weird running injury out of nowhere that really freaked me out because I was starting to get nervous that I wouldn't have my run fitness. I thought it would just disappear overnight. So I really concentrated on swimming and biking and just hoped it would all come together on race day. So then race day came, we drove up to Augusta, and I was very nervous about everything. But for some reason I was really nervous about the swim because even though swimming is, I love it, and I'm a pretty strong swimmer. I had this experience in Daytona where we did a sprint triathlon, and it was very cold. And as we said, I'm from Florida, so I like the warm.
Never, like, even stepping into the sea, it is warmer than a bath.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not used to cold water. And I was completely unprepared for how cold the lake was going to be in the lake swim. And I just had this insane reaction to where I couldn't even put my face in the water. It was that swim felt very long because I was just trying to get through it and be able to breathe properly. And so I kind of carried that fear with me after that race through many successive triathlons that followed, because I just had that, I carried that panic moment with me. So I was nervous that I was going to jump into the river in Augusta and it was going to be cold and I would have that same reaction. So I came into the race pretty apprehensive, but the race was amazing. I mean, the swim was downriver, so it was very fast.
A dream.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hope for much more than that. I mean, it was fast and beautiful, and the water temperature was lovely. And the bike was really fun. It was very hilly, so it was pretty scary for me because, like I said, coming from Florida, I don't have much experience with going downhill. So
that is terrifying. Like the speeds that you can hit on a bike, because at the end of the day, going back to being a mom and stuff, you can't afford to fall off and get seriously injured. Like the impact that would have on the rest of your life, the parts that are not just this triathlete, would be insane.
Yeah, that definitely goes through my mind a lot. I mean, triathlon, there's a lot of elements to it, and the swim can be dangerous. the bike can be dangerous. And so when I was going downhill at a very high speed, I was very nervous, just because I was so unused to it. It felt like a roller coaster. Like I just couldn't believe how fast I was going. It was not my thing. But
you have your stats. Do you know your max speed that you hit? Did Strava tell
Oh my
you?
gosh. I don't even, but I know that Ryan hit about 40 miles per hour. So it was I'm sure that I was going slower than him because I was very much upright and trying not to put it too fast. But all said, the bike was beautiful. It was going through the rolling hills in Georgia, and that was really nice. And I was relieved when I got off the bike, and I was like, oh, thank God. Now I can finally just run. I can do what I love to do. I survived. So let's just go have fun on the run course. And I had a really good run. So it was such a fun race.
And like your half marathon time, because that's obviously what you finish with in an Ironman 70.3. Like most people will be looking at that going, damn, like that's a good time without having done like a really long cycle and a swim before it. So you must have been very happy with that. And your ankle held up.
My ankle held up. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel anything on the run at all. I was very happy with my run. It was so fun. And the really cool thing about that particular race is just everybody in town is out on the streets and cheering you on the whole time. And it's just several loops up and down these same roads. So you can kind of just not think about it and you just run. So that was really enjoyable.
And the whole experience, is it something you would recommend for people? Like, will you be back?
When I was on the bike, I was like, I'm never doing this again.
Would you be a proper triathlete if you weren't having thoughts like that? That was my thought during my Olympic distance triathlon a few weeks ago. I was like, I hate running. And then part of me was like, no, you actually love it. I think
I think a lot.
Part and parcel with it.
It really does. I think your mind goes back and forth between why am I doing this? I'm miserable right now, and but it's so much fun, and you're gonna feel great when you finish. So right after I finished, I was like, I can't really talk about it yet. I don't know if I'll do another one again. But now that I've had some reflecting, I think I would definitely do another 70.3. I would because up until then, my longest distance triathlon had been a sprint. So I've never even done an Olympic distance.
Oh, wow. So you
I just made that.
Like literally straight in at the deep end. I couldn't even imagine that.
So I think I would like to go back and do an Olympic distance or maybe a few Olympic distance races. Because I think that might be my sweet spot. It's not as much time on the bike. So, I still love I am taking a little break from triathlon training because I just needed a little brain refresher. So I've just been running and swimming some. But yeah, I'm 100% going to get back into it and do some more racing next season.
Great. I have to try and think now of an argument to convince you to come over to Ireland and do 70.3 or maybe even a full Ironman. But I mean, you just think of Ireland and you think of cold water.
Cold water.
No, but like maybe it is a fear, and it's a fear that a lot of people have, the open water, whether that is just the cold or the depth or the sea monsters that live down there that we just can't see. But you never know, maybe with a bit of exposure, you never know, you might come to Ireland and conquer a colder sea swim over here.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I love traveling. It's something that I haven't been able to do in a while. Well, nobody's really been able to do in a while, but I'd love to come to Ireland. And, I'm all about facing the fear and getting over it. So I try not to shy away too much from things I'm scared of, which is what I love about triathlon. I mean, for me, triathlon makes me feel so alive because so much of it are things that I'm kind of scared of. Humans aren't naturally made to swim. Humans aren't naturally made to be on a bicycle. So those things that you have to kind of force your body to do in different ways makes you really get a great sense of accomplishment because you're like, wow, like I just swam through the open water in this massive gaggle of people all trying to swim in the same direction, that can be kind of intimidating. And, I joke about it. I'm like, well, if I can survive the swim and the bike, then I feel like the run is just cake. And triathlon is so much about, oh, you survived this and you are alive and you conquered all these fears.
Yeah. And it is just that, like, you don't even know what you're capable of achieving until you go out and try. And, I think anyone who completes an Ironman, anyone who steps out of their comfort zone and like completes anything, should be commended for the effort. And I do love your attitude about, facing your fear instead of shying away from it, because I do think, especially with humans, if we're, experiencing any form of anxiety or stress, we like to stick to what we know. We like to be like, no, I know that I'm happy here. I know that, I enjoy running, but you're just like, nah, running, got this. Let's go further.
Yeah. I love triathlon for that reason. And I think I grew up pretty apprehensive about a lot of things. And I think I was allowed to shy away from the things I was afraid of. And I think I missed out on a lot of experiences because of that. And so I feel like I'm making up for lost time a little bit. Like if I feel apprehensive about it, I'm like, well, that means that you should probably do it. And that's kind of my approach with parenting PJ too. Like she kind of has those same things that I had, and I recognize that in her. So I try to give her these gentle nudges and gentle pushes, so that maybe she gets an earlier start on doing the things that she's afraid of than I did.
And then she will be crushing it in a few years' time with whatever she decides to do. That is fantastic. So I did want to ask you as well, yoga has always been a big part of your life. And how do you find that do you find it goes hand in hand with running, or what is the reason why you've practiced yoga for so long?
Yeah. So, well, the reason I practice yoga, again, my sister who gave me the book Born to Run, also talk about people who do things out of their comfort zone. She kind of out of the blue decided that she was going to go to yoga teacher training, and she started teaching yoga. And to pad her class numbers, I would go to her classes every week. And she's really the reason that I got into it. She would teach hot yoga, and I would drive from Tampa to St. Petersburg once a week to go to her class. And then she opened up a studio. So she's really the reason that I kind of got into it, because otherwise I don't think yoga would have been on my radar. But I'm so glad that happened, because yoga can help so much with your, obviously your flexibility and your mobility. But it also is a lot to do with body strength. So when you're doing yoga, you're doing a lot of like body weight strength. And I think for running in particular, that's really important, because it strengthens up all of those stabilizing muscles, and really helps with injury prevention. Now, to be perfectly honest, my yoga class roster is not quite as robust as it used to be, because I'm
sure everyone listening is going, well, obviously, how do you have a minute for yourself? And would your sister have been would she have had an influence on why you chose to move to St. Petersburg?
Oh yeah, well, I have two sisters here, and so the reason that Pearl and I moved here was basically to be closer to them. We needed some family support, and we needed a support structure, and it just didn't make sense to stay, a 30-minute drive away. So, they definitely were the reason I came to St. Pete, just so that we could be closer. And my oldest sister has a little boy, so I wanted the cousins to grow up together and be close by. So, yeah, they're absolutely why I'm here in St. Pete.
So it sounds like your sister has definitely given you a lot in terms of, setting you on your path, like with yoga, with running, all things like that. We all need a sister like that. And why not give her yoga studio a shout out? People might be interested. Is she on Instagram?
Yes. So she owns the Body Electric Yoga Company. and they're in St. Petersburg, and they have the Body Electric Yoga Company, and then they have they opened up a gym right prior to the pandemic lockdown, actually, and that's the Be Athletic. So yeah, they've got a yoga studio and a gym, and the gym sort of focuses on mindful strength. So they do a lot of like weights and like, you know, pumping iron kind of things, but with mindful movements, and it's a pretty cool concept. So yeah, the Body Electric Yoga.
Amazing. So definitely anyone, you know, who's interested should try any form of yoga, because, you know, yoga can be done as your prehab. Like, it is a good form of prehab or of that strength work that, you know, as runners we neglect, but we do need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people a lot, you know, at the running store when I'm doing fittings for people, to start with yoga, because, you know, sometimes you can be a little lost when I'm just like, okay, you need to do some more strength training. But with yoga, so many of it is single-legged stance and long holds. And that goes a long way in building up those stabilizing muscles for injury prevention. And a lot of people say, well, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible. But that's you can do yoga no matter what.
Yeah, you don't need to be flexible, because like if you think running or even cycling to an extent, is just a whole series of single-legged motions.
Yeah.
Like whether it's running, you're just hopping from one foot to the other. Cycling, okay, pressure down on one foot, pressure down on the other foot. Even swimming, okay, pulling with one arm, okay, pulling with the other arm. So yoga sounds amazing for that whole, like the single limb aspect of it.
Absolutely. And I think too with swimming, I think I took to swimming so quickly. I mean, I grew up swimming just because I live in Florida, but I think I took to it because yoga also creates in you a body awareness. So you have an idea of what all of your limbs and muscles are kind of doing at any given time. And with being in the water, like I said, being in the water is not our natural state, right? We're not fish. So having some kind of body awareness is pretty important for being able to swim with good efficiency. And I think that doing yoga helped with that also.
So it is definitely something to check out for, and like even just to feel good about yourself. Yoga also has that real, you know, just feel good kind of element to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to throw a few questions at you at the moment. So what bike are you using? So this is just kind of quick fire, just a bit more. What bike are you using and your opinion on it?
Well, I have a Quintana TT bike, which, to be perfectly honest, I've not mastered the aero bars yet. So I do all of my outdoor riding on my Orbea road bike, which I love. I love both bikes. You know, triathlon is one of my qualms with it is that it's such an expensive sport. And you can it can be frustrating when you're racing because you know you're faster than people, but they have all this speed built into this bike that they spent thousands and thousands of dollars on. So, but you know, I've never spent more than $400 on a bike somehow.
So you're smashing it, which is fantastic. You know, it shows that if you want to, you can do it essentially not on a budget, but you can do it cheap. You don't have to be spending the tens of thousands of euro.
Exactly.
Good. Okay, shoes. What shoes are you currently wearing? Actually, I know what ones you're wearing because we need to actually talk about this. So my quick fire round of questions is going to turn into this way. Talk to me about the shoes you're wearing, and then talk to me about your adventure with this company.
Yeah, so I was just brought on as a Skechers ambassador. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people hear Skechers and they don't think performance shoes, which completely makes sense to me because I didn't think performance shoes either when I first heard about Skechers. But we've been carrying the Skechers shoes at the running store for about a year and a half now. We started with the Skechers Razor, and it's a really fun shoe, actually. Like I put it on, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun to run in because it's super lightweight, which I love. And it's firm, but bouncy. It gives you a lot of good energy back. So I kind of fell in love with running in the shoe a while ago. just because we carried it at the store. And throughout the year, I've been able to try out different models. So now I got on as an ambassador, I have a bit more options to run in now. So they sent me the Speed Freak, which is their carbon shoe, and it's so nice to run in. So I'm wearing the Speed Freak for kind of my tempo work, or like longer intervals and stuff. And then I've got the Skechers XS for kind of my longer tempo, some speed work, longer runs. And then I just got the Go Run 8, which I have not run in yet, but I'm excited to give that one a go tonight.
Oh, and I think that's probably one of the more common ones, the Go Run series.
Yeah, it is. And I ran in some of the older models. So I think I ran in the 6 and the 7, and both of those were great. So I'm excited to give the new ones a shot. And it's also cool because Meb, who lives in Tampa, he's a Olympic marathoner. He runs with Skechers. So it's kind of, I'm like, how can I make this a way to meet Meb?
I think we might need to start a campaign.
Yeah, right.
To Cody and Jana and be like, let's do a night with Mev. Reach out to him, get him into the store. That would be incredible. No, but it sounds like you have a fantastic journey ahead with them. As you said, you're only just brought on as an ambassador. So it's really exciting. And, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities for, trying different products. And it just sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's so fun.
Great. So going back to my questions then, we'll probably, obviously I'm trying to hopefully inspire a few women. I'm really trying to make women more aware that, just because you're female in sport doesn't mean that we don't have limits. If we understand our bodies, understand, that it's okay to fit this around your schedule. It doesn't have to be a be all and end all. I'm really trying to get that message across. Are there any books out there that you would recommend to people that kind of give off that really inspiring, like, you can do this? We can all achieve if we put our minds to it. What would you recommend?
Yeah. Man, I recommend so many, but if you're going to pick out just one, I will say more than one, but my favorite is Deena Kastor's book, Let Your Mind Run. When I read that, I was just floored by her experience, coming up as a young runner. Her story is amazing. And all of her accomplishments are incredible. And it's so inspiring. And it's not like you're reading it and you're saying, okay, well, this is an Olympian, I'll never achieve that level. She makes it so relatable, particularly I think to women, but I think everybody should read it. Just in pushing your limits, just like figuring out something you want to do and going after it. And she talks so much about the mentality of training and racing. And a lot of that I've carried with me since reading the book, just having that positive outlook in your training, and positive self-talk, and just how far that can take you in accomplishing what you want to accomplish. So definitely Deena Kastor's Let Your Mind Run. I also love, there's a book called Why We Swim by Bonnie Tsui. And I loved that book because it has this very cool anthropological history of humans in the water. So it almost does what Born to Run did with running, but with swimming. And so she talks about just kind of how humans came to be in the water, how we inhabit the water, and why we keep returning to the water as sort of a place where we can find mental clarity, and just how much our relationship with the water can impact our lives. And so I loved that one. And of course, Born to Run, if you're the one person in the world who hasn't read it yet. I love that book so much. For a long time, it was kind of, I joked it was my running Bible. So that book is still in my top 10. And I just finished Helle Frederiksen's book. I think it's called In Pursuit of Victory. And it's just her story again, kind of unlikely, because she was a swimmer forever and then just kind of picked up triathlon and of course, you know, became a world champion. So I think Helle Frederiksen's story is really cool too.
Amazing. So some great options to check out. If anyone is interested, I'm sure there are plenty of other book lovers out there. Well, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on to chat to us. It has been really inspiring to hear everything about how you juggle your kind of training, your working, you're raising an incredible young lady. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I hope some people find some inspiration there. And if you are looking for the definition of Wonder Woman, it is the person I am talking to right here. So thank you for sharing all that with us. And we wish you the very best in whatever challenge you decide to set yourself next.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad. And we will talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.